Russia's government announced to the press that it is ready to send a delegation for talks with Ukrainian officials in Minsk, the Belarusian capital. In Argentina, almost 1 million hectares were destroyed by forest fires in the province of Corrientes, located in the northeast of the country. According to the World Health Organization, vaccination rates in Africa remain the lowest in the world as the continent is racing towards. Hi, this is From the South. I am your news anchor, Diego Martin, from the teleSUR studios in Havana. We begin with the news. Russia is ready to send its delegation to Minsk, Belarus for talks with Ukraine. President Vladimir Putin's press secretary Dmitry Peskov told reporters. According to Peskov, the delegation will include representatives of defense and foreign affairs ministries as well as the presidential administration. On Friday, a video message showed Ukrainian head of state Volodymyr Zelensky inviting his Russian counterpart to sit down at the negotiations table. Zelensky stressed that in this way he intended to stop the killings of civilians. In turn, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Moscow would be ready to start negotiations with Kiev after the Ukrainian military laid down their weapons. He also assured that Russian side was not going to take retribution on the Ukrainian military in any way. On February 24th, Putin announced the launching of a special military operation to protect the Donbas territories from an Ukrainian invasion.
We are ready for negotiations at any moment. As soon as the armed forces of Ukraine respond to our call, stop resisting and lay down their arms.
On Friday, President Xi Jinping held a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Both sides centered on exchanging views on the current situation in Ukraine. Now, Putin introduced the historical context of the Ukrainian issue and Russia's position on special military operations in the eastern part of the country, saying that the U.S. and NATO have long ignored Russia's legitimate security concerns, breached their commitments, and continued to push military deployments eastward. Russia is ready to hold high-level negotiations with the Ukrainian side. She noted the situation in eastern Ukraine has caused great concern in the international community. It is necessary to cast away the Cold War mentality, he said, give importance to and respect the reasonable security concerns of all countries, and build a balanced, effective, and sustainable European security mechanism through negotiations. China supports the Russian side and the Ukrainian side to resolve the issue through negotiations. Now, on the contrary, the official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, announced Kiev's refusal to negotiate with Moscow. Kiev refused to negotiate with Moscow in order for it to postpone this issue furthermore. Zakharova said to organize negotiations between the Russian Federation and Ukraine in Minsk could begin at any time. The politician also noted Kiev must decide whether it really wants negotiations or wants to continue making claims against Russia. Earlier, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reached out to Russian leader with a proposal to sit down at the negotiating table to end hostilities in Ukraine. In addition, he indicated his desire to discuss the issue of the country's neutral status with Moscow. He explained this decision by the negative response of leaders of NATO countries to the issue of Ukraine's entry into the alliance. In turn, Kremlin said in response to Zelensky's proposal, Moscow is ready to send a delegation to Minsk to negotiate with Kiev. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met with his counterpart from the Republic of Luhansk, Vladislav Dinego, and the first Deputy Foreign Minister of the Donetsk People's Republic, Sergei Perezada. The head of the Russian diplomacy declared that his country reaffirms its unwavering support to the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics in their efforts to secure their rights. Lavrov assured that his nation could not remain indifferent to the request for military assistance made by both territories. During the press conference after the meeting, the Russian foreign minister asked a U.S. journalist if in the concept of democracy that they defend in their media, they would accept the banning of a language spoken by many people. This referring to some sectors in Ukrainian society that pushed for the banning of the Russian language in the nation, though they only managed to limit its use in the public life.
Of course, Russia couldn't remain indifferent to direct requests of the heads of your states to come to their aid against the aggressor. In accordance with our ally obligations, President Putin decided to conduct a special military operation to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine so that, freed from this oppression, Ukrainians themselves could freely determine their future.
North Atlantic Treaty Organization heads of state and government met via secure teleconference on Friday to discuss the security situation in and around Ukraine. The meeting was chaired by the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, who in his opening remarks reassured the organization's support of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The military alliance's representative also called on Russia to immediately cease its military actions. Media correspondents and liaisons present at the meeting required a yearly accreditation for 2022, as well as a valid COVID-19 certificate upon arrival in order to cover in person from NATO headquarters. In Belgium, the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said that 70% of Russia's banking sector and state-owned companies will be affected by the European Union's political decision to impose additional sanctions on Moscow over the situation in the Donbass region. The head of the European Commission also added during her press conference after the EU summit that sanctions also target the energy sector, a key economic area for Russian development. All will be affected too as a result of the export ban, which will prevent Russia from modernizing its refineries, those that gave the country an export income valued at 24 million euros. However, the decision on new sanctions will have to be legally determined. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and its partners abandoned his country on the face-off against Russia. The head of state, referring to the Western powers, also remarked that everyone, quote-unquote, is afraid and no one responds. Zelensky assured that he'd questioned the 27 European leaders about his country's membership in NATO, and nobody answered his regards. He assured that, unlike NATO, nobody in his government nor the country's citizens are afraid, although he recognizes that they don't have any other choice. In its last report, the Russian Ministry of Defense notified that the troops of Donetsk and Luhansk advanced about 8 kilometers, supported by the Russian artillery and air force. In light of the situation, the Ukrainian president confessed in his address to the country that no other nation has offered him guarantees. We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. In an exclusive interview for teleSUR, the Spanish journalist and intellectual Ignacio Ramonet cataloged this February 24th as the starting date of a new world geopolitical age regarding the Russian special military operation in Donbass.
This February 24th marks the world's entry into a new geopolitical age. We are in an absolutely new situation, probably since the Second World War, that there had not been a war event as important as this. Evidently, there had been many important events in Europe: the fall of the Berlin Wall, the implosion of the Soviet Union, the wars in Yugoslavia, but this is an extremely important date, and that is true, as you point out that to a certain extent this event combines with the pandemic.
Ramonet also referred to Russia's concerns and demands regarding the expansion of NATO in Eastern Europe.
And what Putin has demanded over and over is that Russia be given guarantees that Ukraine is not going to join NATO, so that the Russian Federation can be certain NATO will not reach the border with Russia, that they will not be deploying nuclear weapons that would endanger the security of Russia. NATO says we have to install weapons to ensure security. I don't know about Poland or Estonia. That's okay, but that endangers the security of other countries, in particular that of Russia. And of course this was avoidable. Putin said so repeatedly, so to all heads of states or prime ministers who have visited him recently.
The Spanish journalist and intellectual Ignacio Ramonet emphasized on the constant siege suffered by the citizens of the self-proclaimed republics of Donetsk and Luhansk carried out by Ukrainian forces.
Now, many commentators in the Western press blame Putin of having sabotaged the Minsk agreements, which provided that the republics would be given broad autonomy by Kiev. Now self-proclaimed, recognized as sovereign by Moscow, but only by Moscow, and this autonomy was not implemented, a situation endured by the Russian-speaking population of these regions. There have been 14,000 dead. There is no doubt that there is an element of exasperation on the part of the Russian authorities, to which the leaders of the United States and NATO have not known how to respond. I repeat, this could have been relatively easy to avoid.
In Argentina, almost 1 million hectares were destroyed by forest fires in the province of Corrientes, located in the northeast of the country. The National Institute of Technology indicated that about 1,000 hectares are burned per day, totaling 934,238 hectares burned, which constitutes 11% of the provincial territory. Among the most affected areas is the department of Ituzaingó, with more than 173,000 hectares affected by the fire, and in Santo Tomé with 180,000 hectares. On the other hand, the National Commission of Space Activities estimated that the high values of gases generated by the flames have an impact on human health and global warming. President Alberto Fernández flew over the area of San Miguel in the north-central part of Corrientes, accompanied by several ministers, to visit the regions affected by the forest fires. A bill called the Poison Package in Brazil has been submitted to the Senate to be reviewed. The bill seeks to expand the use and commercialization of agrotoxic substances in the country. Our reporters in Minas Gerais tell us about resistance in rural regions to the use of toxic substances. Our correspondent Ignacio Lemos brings us more details.
Contrary to Brazilian institutions, farmers advocate for a poison-free agriculture for the health benefit of peasants, consumers, and the land itself. When the plants grow together, they help each other. There is variety and they repel pests. There is a living self-control mechanism when the soil is healthy. If the plants are healthy, such mechanism is alive and balanced. It is a naturally occurring mechanism. I learned it is a sort of construction. It's a magical thing. The plants regulate themselves and the entire system is regulated. With half of the Chamber of Deputies in favor, the best wildfires of the Brazilian state. Also, it is officially known as Bill 6299. It is commonly referred to as the poison package. If approved, it will allow the unregulated and massive use and commercialization of agrotoxic substances in Brazil. Many of these substances are banned in Europe and they known carcinogens. The Los Ruralistas web media revealed that the family business of Luis Nishimori, the deputy that introduced the poison bill, struck a deal with Syngenta, the world leading company of agrotoxic substances, to create them.
E ganâncias para não mais que 5 empresas transnacionais. Aqui em Brasil,
The agrochemical substances sector is one of the most profitable businesses, and there is controlled by less than 5 transnational companies. In Brazil alone, they have an annual revenue of $12 billion, which is more than the GDP of Uruguay, close to the GDP of Bolivia. It is equivalent to a nation's economy, and they have their own NGOs, their own journalists, to fool society about the fact that they are indeed the ones responsible to the poisoning of the waters, the soil, and the destruction of biodiversity.
para que a sociedade não se dê conta quem são os culpados por la contaminação das águas, la destruição da biodiversidade.
If approved, it will make a bad situation worse because, in the last year alone, the current administration eliminated restrictions on the use of a record number of these substances, a total of 641. The bill was put for a vote at the Chamber of Deputies by Arthur Rida, an ally of Jair Bolsonaro. It's an evil conduct and we are seeing of the part of government leaders, corruption from the top to down. It makes me very sad, it is frightening, and brings despair. But it also gives me resolve to plant and urge others to grow crops without using any poisons, because why using them? Why would anyone want poison in their plate? Next March 9, artists brought together by musician Caetano Veloso, social movements, native people organizations, NGOs, and other members of civil society will be gathering in Brasilia to put a stop on this poison bill.
Ignacio Lemus y Julia Nassif para Telesur.
The European Union Election Observation Mission is in Colombia to accompany the legislative elections on March 13th in the midst of the escalating violence affecting the country. The head of the observation mission in Colombia, Javi Lopez, informed that he will hold a press conference where he is expected to finalize details regarding the presence of electoral observers in the nation. Around 34 officials from the international organization are expected to arrive, and more observers will be added as the date of the elections draws nearer. According to Lopez, around 100 foreign observers will accompany the electoral event on March 13th. In this context, the country continues in a spiral of violence where around 8 municipalities are in confinement due to clashes between the guerrilla and the army. We have news from South America as Venezuela reopened its border with Brazil. Government authorities from the Venezuelan state of Bolívar and Roraima and Pacaraima from Brazil attended the ceremony. The Venezuelan governor Angel Marcano stated that his presence in the border zone fulfilled an indication of the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro, who requested him and all the authorities of the state of Bolívar to normalize the border crossing point. Brazilian and Venezuelan authorities emphasized the brotherhood of the two countries and the historical bonds uniting them, in addition to the benefits of Latin American integration to the people's progress. Authorities on both sides of the border agreed to the reopening normalized the economic and social relations affected by the COVID-19 pandemic.
The Brazilian and the Venezuelan people united on the border. The dream of Bolívar, a united Latin America, the dream of Hugo Chavez, to create a development area that would benefit our peoples, is represented in this humble but historical event that represents the reopening of the border between Venezuela and Brazil. For us, the presence of the authorities of Pacaraima is very important.
Honduras' Supreme Court of Justice denied the appeal of former President Juan Orlando Hernandez to be held under house arrest during his extradition process. Hernandez was arrested on February 15th at the request of United States authorities. He faces charges of drug trafficking, using weapons for drug trafficking, and conspiracy to use weapons in drug trafficking. A Supreme Court judge ruled on February 16th that Hernandez be held at a National Police Special Forces base in the capital pending the outcome of the extradition process. The judge handling his case denied his attorney's request for house arrest last week and scheduled a court session on March 16th to hear evidence supporting the U.S. charges. Hernandez's two-term presidency ended on January 27th with the swearing-in of President Xiomara Castro. We have more news coming up after a final short break. Please join us. Hi, welcome back. On Thursday, vaccination rates in Africa remain the lowest in the world as the continent is raising towards, said the World Health Organization. 1 year since COVAX facility delivered the first COVID-19 vaccines to Africa, around 400 million of doses have been administered. Continent's largest ever vaccine rollout in a single year, said Matshidiso Moeti, WHO Regional Director for Africa, at an online press conference in Brazzaville, Republic of Congo. According with the officer of the WHO Regional Office for Africa, Fiona Atuebue, Africa should be able to meet the target of vaccinating 70% of the population by early next week.
Worryingly, a sizable proportion of the highest risk populations in Africa remains unvaccinated. In 27 countries which are reporting data on health worker vaccination, just a third of the health workforce is fully vaccinated. Among the 24 countries that are reporting data on vaccination in older people, only 21% of adults over the age of 50 years have been fully vaccinated. And only 11% of people with comorbidities are reported to be fully vaccinated in the 20 countries that are providing us with this data.
In Baghdad, Iraq, COVID-19 rages as vaccinations lag, and the stores and buses masks are rare even as COVID-19 spreads widely. Vaccines are viewed with suspicion, and the sick see hospitals as a last resort. At Al-Shifa Hospital in the capital, Baghdad, ramifications are clear.
We are currently in the fourth wave of COVID-19 cases. We believe that we overcame the peak of the wave, but it's not over yet, which means that we are still in the danger zone.
The biggest challenge is the wrong information out there. That is a lack of the good, appropriate awareness of what COVID is all about and how the vaccination and how safe the vaccination is. So this is the biggest challenge. So there is a gap in the right information people have at the community level. So, which is one of the reasons why MSF is shifting not just from the hospital care to transit to the health promotion program, targeting specific high-risk group.
In Burkina Faso, a commission of experts introduced a proposal to hold elections in 30 months with the purpose of returning to civilian government. The document, whose content was not been made public, will be submitted to the appointed President, Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Sandaogo, for his consideration. According to the announcement, the same commission will be responsible for restoring territorial integrity, consolidating peace, ensuring the return of internally displaced people, establishing good governance, and re-establishing constitutional order. Meanwhile, the country has been under several restrictions by the Economic Commission of West African States and the African Union since January 24th due to the coup d'etat that overthrew President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore, criticized for his lack of results against terrorism. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari on Friday approved an amended electoral law that will allow electronic transfer of voting results during the 2023 elections in a bid to improve transparency. Ballots in Nigeria have often been marred by electoral fraud since the country returned to civilian rule in 1999. The bill allows the Election Commission to authorize electronic transmission of voting results and electronic registration to help prevent fraud. These innovations would guarantee the constitutional rights of citizens to vote and do so effectively. Buhari, who was first elected in 2015, had initially rejected the new law, claiming it would infringe on party bylaws and lead to insecurity during the polls. A former military ruler, he will step down after serving 2 4-year terms, and political leaders are already maneuvering for position before the February 2023 ballot.
There are salient and praiseworthy provisions that could positively revolutionize elections in Nigeria through the introduction of new technological innovations. These innovations would guarantee the constitutional rights of citizens to vote and to do so effectively.
We've come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at teleSUR English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Dio Martin. Thanks for watching.